Wait, isn't everybody at war over atheism?
Atheism? No, we've learned to get rid of all the isms in our time. Yes, long ago we realized isms are great for those who are rational, but in the hands of irrational people, isms always lead to violence.
Welcome to the new episode of Tim's Two Cents, the podcast where I ultimately achieve nothing and mostly just ramble on about things that I feel like talking about that week. Thinking about in the future, this is episode 17, by the way. I'm thinking going forward, I'm not sure that I want to just keep it to what I've been doing. I think I might want to start just kind of branching off and just different shit and just giving opinions on random things, maybe not necessarily just like ideas and I'm gonna give you straight facts for everything. No, but like maybe talking about like maybe current events or like something that happened recently. Maybe just doing a still one person podcast, but not necessarily focusing on figuring out. Because if you haven't listened to this before, most of these podcasts are about either a political or an economic or a religious kind of ism, a belief system, and then me trying to figure out the best and worst aspects of that, I guess, trying to find the little bits of truth you can find in most belief systems, because most things aren't completely worthless. Most things aren't completely untrue, because they have to have like at least a little kernel of truth, or a kernel of something that could be misconstrued as truth, a kernel of something that makes you go, oh yes, no, I want to believe this because it would make me either a better person or it fits in with like an idea I have for the world. But I don't know, look forward to that, I guess. Again, I need people to tweet at me, give me things to talk about. Tweet me stories, get me on there, because I'm not really going to pay as much attention to YouTube comments or Spreaker comments. I just don't have the notifications set up and I don't feel like doing that. You mostly just bother Daniel if you do comment on them, and then he'll send them to me and be like, hey, respond to this. But you can get me pretty much directly on Twitter at BakersDozen93. It's the best place to just let me know if you liked the shit, if you didn't like the shit, if you think it's shit, whether that's a good way of saying that or not. Just let me know. Give me ideas to talk about. Give me something you guys would be interested in. It helps me figuring out what exactly people want, because in any kind of a podcast, I think it's hard to figure out exactly what people are listening for. I'm still not really sure. I don't even know if anybody's listening. It might just be Daniel just inflating the views and telling me a couple people listen. That could also be true. I could just be speaking out in the wind right now. But whatever it is, it doesn't really fucking matter. I'm going to do it anyway. So, besides me, you probably have heard of this through the Yumi and BTC podcast. It's kind of the network. We don't really have a network name either. You can tweet me network names and then I'll tell Daniel it like it's my idea, and then I'll get props for that. But besides this podcast, I do this every Monday. Should be out every Monday night. Besides the Yumi and BTC podcast, which is our live show, kind of our flagship for whatever you want to call this whole jumbled mess of a podcast network, is the Yumi and BTC live show. We do, like as it implies, it's a live show. Every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern. You get us on the chat there. You can have like a direct kind of response. You can shift the way the show goes with your comments and everything like that. We don't take calls in right now, which is probably a bad idea, so that's mostly why we don't do it. But we do, like I said, you can chat with us. It's more of a hangout thing. We do focus on Bitcoin. The last couple of episodes we've talked some about like libertarian philosophy and just kind of that in general. But it's much more of a hangout. You more just people kind of like shooting the shit. It's supposed to be a little more fun. I don't know how fun these are, but if you're listening, maybe you're having fun. Also, Zach Vold does a podcast, the third leg of, I don't know what that means, but the third leg of the Yumi and BTC podcast is Zach Vold, and he does the Coin Pod every Tuesday, where he goes and interviews people, does, like, again, it's a show where there's going to be people having conversation. So if that more interests you, that is also very much focused on Bitcoin, focused on cryptocurrency, and it's also one of its differences from this show is it is completely based in trying to tell you what is going on versus just giving you random ideas about what people think. He'll have people on there actually discuss things. They'll give you information. But who wants that? Who wants to actually learn things when you can just kind of pontificate about things and never be wrong? We also then have I'm not sure if they put out an episode recently, but you can check a couple of their older episodes out, is the Unpopular Opinion podcast. That is not at all focused on Bitcoin, not at all focused on cryptocurrency. That's to hang out with two guys. They're cool dudes. They'll talk about shit. They'll shoot shit. They'll bust shit. I don't really know. They have unpopular opinions and they talk about whatever they're really focused on. Then they've had an episode about sports, about the whole, it was maybe a month ago where they, I guess the government released its hold on sports gambling or something like that. Maybe they lifted some restrictions but yeah, that's more of a show. Again, it's like a hangout. This one is just me here with you guys. I have a very deep relationship with my fans, and I hope you all realize that. So send me money, send Daniel money, tell him it's for me so he feels worse. But again, you can get all those shows at the You Me and BTC Network, and the reason why we're able to bring you all those different shows is our very generous sponsor, Chronologic, which is it's based on Ethereum. It's using the Ethereum to focus on smart contracts, proof of work, but smart contracts, debt contracts. Really, instead of going on Twitter and people tweeting about how we need to get rid of the government or how we need more government, something like this is actually making the government. It's making its fuck. I think I forgot this word last time, but it's phasing out the need for a centralized authority, a centralized ledger, a centralized state where, okay, we don't need you anymore. We've made you obsolete. That was the word I've been trying to think of for an entire week and still couldn't think of. It's making things like going to the government for your contract enforcement, making that obsolete, making a better idea, making something where we don't have to depend on a third party to actually facilitate contracts. So check them out. Let them know you heard about them through us, specifically me at Tim's 2 Cents. Let them know that they're raking in the dough from sponsoring me because I want more of it. This week, speaking of wanting more things, I want to talk about, I guess, consumerism. I think it's kind of a poison word a little bit because most of the time, and I guess this part will be because I want to, normally this show is half of the battle is defining what I mean by that term because no one really ever agrees what necessarily certain things mean. I think consumerism is definitely one of those words where people are all over the place. People have whatever their ideas of how they've been raised, what movies they've seen, whatever, or who they hang out with, whether in real life or online. Where consumerism isn't necessarily, like, I've looked up the definition. The definition is, the ever-increasing consumption of goods and services, or the economic system that increasing consumption of goods is economically desirable. I don't think most people are referring to that whenever they say consumerism. Maybe they are, and I'm going to be going off of that definition, but most times whenever we're talking about consumerism, I know I've brought it up a few times on this show before, probably on You, Me, and BTC as well, where if you say consumerism, if you say something like that, it's kind of just this nebulous idea of, like, if you see video of people at a Black Friday sale, people, consumerism, rah, rah, rah. So that's, I think, where most people are coming from. If you hear someone say something like, I just think consumerism is just a problem in the world, and it's, well, these people over here, and they buy too many things, or they're so focused on saving money and buying new TVs, and they don't even go and spend time with their families. Well, the person saying that has never actually spend any kind of a time with their family. They sit there and they go, why is my uncle talking to me? I don't want to do this. They don't actually ever do anything. They just go, well, these people over here, how can you, this is ridiculous. You're going at 7 o'clock at night on Thanksgiving. You're supposed to be thankful. And I mean, right off of the bat, for the defense, I would say that, like, buying new things with your wealth and buying new things that you think are going to make you happier is a way of being thankful. It's like, that doesn't preclude, maybe it's not a way of being thankful, but it doesn't preclude the idea that you are thankful. Once you're thankful, you don't just stop buying things. You don't just stop, oh, no, I got a big enough TV. My laptop's fine. I'm just going to sit in these until I die, because I am thankful now eternally for this one day on Thanksgiving. I will be eternally thankful for everything that I have. I don't need new stuff. Don't need more food. I'm thankful. Now I know people aren't saying that, but I think the way the consumerism, and I mean most words, to be honest, are kind of just thrown around, especially if you're using it as a way to criticize something. They're not really honest. They're kind of attacking normally a straw man argument. And now I'm just using words too, so I'm bullshit as well. So I'm not trying to get away from that. But most people, if you're talking about consumerism, are referencing the idea that something like Walmart is bad for all of us, and Walmart is eventually going to drain all of our ability to appreciate life, and people will never be happy. And what if people are lining up outside of stores at 2 days before Thanksgiving? How will they ever get to... No one wants that person at the family get-together anyway. Nobody wants the aunt who goes and punches people in the face over a DVD copy of the Avatar: The Last Airbender. Nobody wants her at the Thanksgiving dinner anyway, so let her fucking go to Walmart with the other people like her. Like, it's not that big of an issue. Normally what I do on this show, I try to go through the good, beneficial, maybe even ways you can apply things to your life, the way you can apply ideas from this kind of theory. And part of the problem with this is, me personally, like I said, I looked up the definition and stuff like that, so I've read like a Wikipedia article, but I've never actually had someone explain to me the theory behind consumerism. So you might say that makes me unfit to make a podcast about consumerism, and I say fuck you, because that's all really podcast is saying fuck you to the idea of I guess curating content as far as like an audio form. Like, we're saying, okay, we don't need the FCC, we're just going to put all this bullshit out no matter what we say, no matter how truthful it is. But as far as like, I that's somewhat false. I have read things, and I've had people explain to me just the idea of, not personally, but normally I'm the one trying to explain this to people after I've read an article, but that a society that is focused on building non-essential items, because normally whenever you're talking about consumerism, people won't then also go after nurses who work on Thanksgiving. They won't be like, these greedy fucking nurses and doctors having hospitals open. It's normally against stuff that is considered non-essential. Most of the time they're not criticizing police for working on Thanksgiving. They're criticizing Walmart for staying open, or Target for not closing soon enough. But the idea of, I've heard people explain the idea that if you just, like, it's very hard to have a society that only focuses on the most, what people would call as essential things. I believe that most, like, kind of socialist societies, most socialists in general talk about, well, the government just needs to provide the most essential things, which is a slippery slope, because then more and more things become essential. More and more things need to be regulated for the good of the people, for the protection of everybody. But most of the time, those governments aren't really good at doing that. Most of the time, like, if you nationalize a service, the service tends to suffer a little bit as far as the quality control and consumer happiness the level of competence doesn't tend to go up. Like, as soon as the government nationalizes something, immediately geniuses aren't just put in. Normally it's just a lot more red tape and stuff, and kind of incompetent. It just gets bloated with everything. So if you're going to make the argument of, well, we can't have consumerism, we can't have people focusing on just buying TVs and stuff like that. We need people to focus on building hospitals and building larger community centers and larger schools. That doesn't normally happen unless you have the non-essential items to just tax the shit. And that's the negative form of it. Like, you can't. It's normally people making billions of dollars and millions of dollars that donate shit and donate to the arts and donate to all different kinds of things that, like, provide funding for making essential items more available or making essential items cheaper to make. Normally they have, like, some kind of a patronage from people who have made money off of non-essential items. The argument is ever increasing demand for goods. Like, say, instead of people washing their own clothes, now we have dryers and washers, and at the beginning it's only rich people have it, only kind of the people at the top who can spend the money. But then businesses realize that if they can market this new technology to millions of people versus maybe a couple 100,000, they can drop the price down. They'll make more money off the millions of people buying the things than they will off of just like a couple 100,000 people buying them at a higher price, but also probably expecting a higher amount of service for it, have better benefits around it. So as far as, like, if you can provide a $5 item versus a $20 item, people are probably also going to expect less from a $5 item. You're probably not going to expect to have as good of a warranty on that. But besides that, you have a $5 item versus a $20 item. As long as this disparity in quality isn't that much, you're going to have a lot more people buy the $5 item, and you can probably make more money with that if you have millions of people buying that. Besides helping to drive, like, prices for things down, as kind of that whole like, prosperity trickles down, I guess that would be the best way to put it. Besides that, it also does create more jobs. Like, if people always want to talk about making jobs and the government needs to make jobs, the government's never made a job since the fucking, what were those called? The FDR did the I don't even remember what the Great Works programs or something like that, where they're just like, yeah, no, fucking build a Hoover Dam because this is very cost effective for us, and this is a great wonder for our time now, and it doesn't matter that it's built like shit and everything, but we just need to put people to work. But in reality, consumerism is what's going to put people to work, making people want to buy more things, whether you're putting people to work because they need to pay for things or because they just now have a job, because in the past not as many people were buying washers, dryers. Now they need new technicians, they need new factory operators, they need new salesmen. Something like consumerism and society and economic system that focuses on promoting the consumption of goods is going to make more jobs. It's going to make more opportunities for people. If you have an exploding population, consumerism is going to make more jobs for those people. It's going to make more goods available for those people, which isn't a bad thing. I think one of the biggest issues that people have with consumerism, that, oh, you're just a consumerist and this is consumerist society that we live in. That's what life is. We need to get back to nature, but having a new TV, they're forms of entertainment, yes, but they are also forms of status. Like, you don't just get a big TV because, oh, I like the better picture, I like the better, it's crisper and it's nicer, and the sound system it's just wonderful. You do that then when people come over, they go, oh, that's nice, it's sick, that's great. Consumerism and that whole idea does kind of go off of like a natural thing that we have, like whether if it's clothing, like we've been doing consumerism where we just make things that are not essential. We have decorations, we have all like body painting, we have anything that is meant for nothing else than to kind of just peacock around in front of other people is a form of consumerism by that kind of definition. So what is the problem with that? What is the problem with people wanting more things? And I'll talk a little bit more about what I think the issues are and why I do kind of understand that argument later. But as far as right now, there isn't that big of an issue. That isn't you, like the idea that you're having your purpose for life stolen from you because you don't have your life being threatened every day is not that big of a loss. And also, most of the people who then go and just spend their entire lives buying things weren't going to do all that much outside of that system anyway. There's nobody who, if you put them back 200 years ago, was going to become a very hardworking, industrious person or an artist who now just kind of watches TV, smokes weed, and likes to binge watch Netflix and click on new videos on YouTube. The same, you're not having people just, oh, well, I mean, I would be industrious and artistic, but, I do have all of these YouTube videos I need to watch. There is something empty about it. Like, you feel bad after at least, I would say most people should at least, maybe, where you go and you just, oh, well, I got this new TV, it's great and everything, but I'm going to want a new one in a couple days. Like, most people aren't going to make no, I'll be happy with this forever. I'll always want this TV, and I'll always want this slow internet service, and I never want it to get better. We want that with everything. We always want more things, better things, quicker things, faster things, shinier things, less expensive things. Consumerism is at least focused on all of that. I think, if anything, if you're going to follow any ideals, or if you're going to follow, as far as looking at them as being beneficial for society or beneficial for the mass amount of people, you kind of have to go with things that mitigate people's natural responses to things. And people's natural response to having more money or living someplace is to try to peacock to other people, and is to try to make an image for yourself, make an identity for yourself through buying things. That's been a thing forever. You can't, there are some people in history where, they made a name for themselves because of what they did, but that's not like more people did it back then. People back 200 years ago just tried to make an identity out of wearing a certain kind of clothing, or going to a certain church, or reading a certain book. Like, it's all kind of the same thing, and you can't just get down on people on Black Friday at Walmart just because, well, you're just wasting your life. What are you doing with yourself? You're buying another video game? Go outside and touch a tree because it'll make your life better, because we would all love to see what you're able to produce, because it would just be so good since you've spent the last 7 years buying the new NFL, NHL, and FIFA games, because that's a good purchase. I'm trying to think whatever else I have. Again, I think consumerism mixing with like a free market, if it's not something where you're kind of just, we don't really have a free market. We have government's very much tied into it with advertising not ideas, advertising and standards and their supposed protection of things. Government's very tied into the whole idea of the market, especially in America. But something like consumerism, something like you just get more and more people to have a certain good or service, does, even a slightly free market, does force prices down, does make people go, hey, instead of focusing on charging a bunch of money just so the rich fuck's going to have this, let's make this a lot cheaper, maybe streamline the production process, maybe drop some of how good it is. But if we can get it to more people, sell it for less, we can make more money. And that's not out of we just need to help poor people, we need to get everybody this new thing. But it's out of greed, and it's out of wanting themselves to have more money to buy more things. So again, what I'm saying, like, where as much as you can, if you can play into people's natural urges, that's probably the best one to go with, because it'd be a lot easier to trick people into being quote unquote good and helping to provide cheaper services for everybody, cheaper goods for everybody, if you can also get them to go, hey, I can make a lot of money off this, or I can just buy new things. So if you can get people to follow a semi-good code of ethics or living, or just make the world a better place while basing your incentive, like if you can set up incentives for people to do those things, it's going to happen a lot quicker than if you just go, yep, no, we should just give everybody free healthcare, free college. How? We're just going to tax the rich people more. We're not going to tax the poor people. That's never how taxes work. We never raise taxes on poor people. We're just going to tax the rich. So if you can do something where you're actually incentivizing people to make the world a more prosperous place, you're going to do a lot better if you can go off of their natural instincts. Daniel Brown will now bring you an ad now. I hope you guys can suffer through hearing him waiting for me, but I'll be right back with you guys.
Hey guys, today's show is brought to you by Chronologic.network. Chronologic is an Ethereum-based project that aims to solve time-related problems on the blockchain. Through Chronologic's 3 core products, the Ethereum alarm clock, debt smart contracts, and the day token minting mechanism, they solve the problems of payment scheduling, crypto loan time constraints, and unstable token launches. Find out more at chronologic.network.
Okay, and thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much, Daniel, for joining us. Daniel Brown has, as I said before, I do the Yumi and BTC podcast with him. Actually, I'm not sure if I did reference him in that, but I do that. That's the Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern show we do every week, live show. I think it's just been him and me for the past 2 weeks, maybe 3. Zach's gone incommunicado for a little bit. He's studying up on stuff. He's stacking papers, but he'll be back. But Daniel, who you just heard, he also does that show with me. So come check us out sometime. He's a semi-okay guy if you can get around the edges. No, I mean, he doesn't really have any edges. That's part of the problem. But speaking of edges, problems, I don't know, I keep on trying to tie these things into what I'm saying. It's probably annoying, but again, no one ever tweets me, so I don't really know. So I'm just going to keep on going with whatever I do until somebody bitches at me on Twitter or something. But now, like I said before, I try to go through the good parts of any kind of an ism or belief system first, and then turn right back around and kind of try to argue against those. And pretty much the only bad thing I have with consumerism, the bad idea of, like, because if you think about it, wanting to increase the consumption of goods, and the fact that, like, not just wanting to do that for the sake of increasing the consumption of goods, but increasing the consumption of goods because it'll benefit that country or that region or that whatever collective economically, is pretty self-explanatory. If you can sell more things, that's a better economy than if you have a stagnant one where people are just like, well, I need to save my money forever, and then I'll give it to my children, and then they'll never spend it, and then we'll just kind of live off the land. We'll just farm everything. We have a compost pile in our backyard. It breeds us all these fresh tomatoes and everything. Is like the only problem I have with that is I do see the benefit to kind of unplugging from that system, especially if you want to be part of that system, if you want to be the person peacocking with a new television or new shoes, new clothes, new car, do it, fine. But if you, for whatever reason, find yourself wanting to not do that, see, the only issue with all this is where people then go and peacock in the other direction of saying, oh, I just don't consume things, I'm so anti-consumerism, where then they just buy more expensive clothing to promote causes that they feel like they should do, which is just another form of peacocking. It's another form of going, hey, I care about these things, unlike you piece of shit, you vapid, you spent your money on a new video game, and I spent my money on this t-shirt that says save the rainforest and has nothing to do with the rainforest, and nothing has ever been helped by the rainforest, and it just contains diseases and lots of poisonous animals. But you know what? God damn it, it makes me feel better. And somebody once told me they like the fact that I support these things. So it gets annoying when then it then just gets turned around. It's just another form of selling things. But there is, I think, an issue with some people, maybe some people more susceptible to this. They're more, some people more sensitive to this happening, where after a while, because consumerism and because a consumerist society does promote so much new wealth and so much new prosperity, where now we have refrigerators and I keep on using the example of a washer and dryer. I was trying to think of something better, but an oven and ways to store food and ways to buy new food and bigger shopping marts and more toys and everything. The problem with that then is because that does bleed over into non-essential services, or it goes from non-essential services to essential services, where then you have cheap goods for hospitals, you have cheap medicine. Cheap medicine isn't the best example because that's something separate, but then you have like cheap chairs and cheap construction and cheap computer software, and it runs smoothly because that computer software is also purchased by everybody else, and it's not considered an essential good, so the government doesn't fuck with it as much. And so it's allowed to exist in a competitive market, which then drives prices down and then allows for better services that are considered essential. But because of that, because it makes life better, because it makes life less dangerous, there is something missing, at least it seems like, from a world where you could maybe die to a world where I have so much money, I have so much wealth, I have so much food in my house right now that I could live for a year, and it wouldn't matter if I took off an entire year, compared to living out in the woods where if you haven't saved food, if you don't have a way to preserve it, you need to get shit every single day, and it's like not exciting, but it's like it validates your existence then. If you're stuck in a world where nothing really matters, like God is dead, nothing matters. But in the literal sense of, you could take a month vacation and you're not just going to die, and you're not just going to fall apart after that. And in a world like that, there is something missing if you try to get people to focus on doing something. There's something missing then if you try to force people to... There's something missing if you want people to care. There's something missing if you want people to have like a passion in their life. Because part of the problem, maybe like it seems like people have less hobbies. I don't know. Maybe they don't. Maybe people have just as much stuff. But maybe this is the whole issue with consumerism, is instead of finding a hobby, whether it's woodworking, writing, or doing a podcast, doing a bad job of podcast, or doing a good job of podcast, or doing glass painting in general, anything where you can find a passion. It doesn't have to be a life or death situation. It seems like people are doing that less. It seems like people are tweeting more, or more just like looking at pictures, or more doing stuff like that. And then you do run into the issue where life kind of seems meaningless. It seems pretty bland. Every single day is the same. There's no ups or downs. It's kind of just this, because if you came into this world from like 200 years ago, it'd be like a giant up. It'd be an up, like a high you would not come down from for a while. I would say probably like 6 months. You'd just be out of your mind. Just wow. But since we've been born in this, since we've grown up into a world that has all these new things, life can then just seem like one long, well, great, yeah, no, great, I woke up, my food isn't all spoiled in my refrigerator, yay. Like, you don't think of it like that. You go, oh, good, the food's here like it was supposed to be. And if you have that attitude and you don't have any kind of a output for that, whether it's disgust with things or whether it's just a wanting to make the day different through creating something, if you don't have an outlet for that, instead of complaining about other people making things too cheaply, you get sad and people kill themselves, and we have more people on antidepressants. And instead of focusing on staying alive, we're focusing on just living. I don't even know if that means anything. Like, you're not focused on keeping yourself alive. You're just kind of focused on trying to experience again, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out the way to say this as far as, like, it's not about living anymore. It's just about buying the next best stuff. Like, I get that whole thing of, well, keeping up with the Joneses is bad. And it's, yeah, but if you're not doing anything else, that's all you really kind of have. That's, again, not necessarily a bad thing. It is just, again, what we've done throughout history where we try to peacock over other people. But I get the argument of it's sucking away at our life as humans. I think this might also be, like, most of the people who are then complaining about consumerism also then would fight with people over, well, no, we're not just animal. Like, they would, I believe, say that we're just animals, probably, that we're just kind of like the whole rest of the world. We're the same thing as an animal. There's no really, like, divine spark in us. But God damn it, I'm not just here to just consume things. I'm meant to for more things, which you're not. If there is no intellect, if there is no spiritual spark inside of us, then you're not here for anything. You as far as, like, if we are all just life, propagating itself, then your whole purpose is just to live. Your whole purpose is just to consume enough things and to procreate, and maybe having a bigger TV or a bigger car. I mean, having a bigger car helps with that. But it's all natural. Like, we look at these things as artificial. We look at these things that we've created as artificial, but it's the same thing as an animal building a better nest, or or just growing a better coat in the winter, or not in the winter, but in, like, the mating season, or having colors that they kind of just flash out. Like, it's all tied into that. But I get not wanting to just think of ourselves as animals. I get not wanting to consider the idea that we are just kind of doing this until we die, and there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. But I get people who don't like to think like that, who like to think that each and every person in the world has that novel inside them, has that painting, has that music, because, this one guy who spent his entire life doing it and focusing and practicing, he says that there's a novel inside of everybody. And so I then believe him because he said this to make us all feel better about ourselves, so we buy his books, because that's very important now. But yeah, I mean, I get it. If you have an issue with people going to Black Friday shopping, I don't do it. I don't feel the need. I've gone twice maybe, and I think both times I didn't buy anything. I think I went maybe to, like, a bookstore and got, like, a half price DVD, but I don't even think it was even less. It was a place called, like, Half Price Books, so the shit was already half priced. I don't know that they were even had a better sale then. I just was like, oh, I want No Country for Old Men, fuck it. So I'm there with you as far as, let's fucking stop spending our money on this. Put your money in Bitcoin, put your money in something, put your money into a hobby. Instead of buying a new car, instead of buying a new whatever, build yourself a workshop. Buy something. Buy books on learning something new, I guess, if you have that big of an issue with it. But just complaining about something doesn't really do anything. That's the episode, guys. I won't be a consumerist this week. I won't just keep on giving you all the new podcasts that you want. I want to tease it out of you guys. I need you guys to tweet me again at BakersDozen93 and validate my existence, because I don't get it through buying things because I'm too poor. I get it through Twitter likes, and I mean, I don't really even post enough for Twitter likes. I get it through Twitter followers, and that makes me feel good about myself, and that means I'll come back and give you guys another podcast before I kill myself. But no, thank you guys again for listening. Thanks for curating our content, because now that we don't have something like the FCC governing over stuff, it is really the consumer's job to curate things, to let us know what's good, what's not, who's getting donated to, who's getting paid, and that's the way to do it. Instead of putting down laws and edicts and guidelines and rules, we go, hey, you didn't make any money, you fucking suck. You didn't have any fans, you fucking suck, get out. So that's the best way to do it. That's the way to curate. That's the best way to consume things, is if we have the ability to vote with our attention, vote with our money. So go out and do that. Do if you're gonna complain about something, don't give it your money. If you like something, give it your money. That's pretty simple. I don't normally do advice, but there it is for this week. But thanks again, guys. I'll be back next Monday. Again, check out all the shows we have on the network. Zach Voles, The Coin Pod, Unpopular Opinions, and the You Need BTC podcast every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern live, and especially Tim's 2 cents. Come back next week. Thanks. Bye.